Welcome to the Evangelism podcast. I'm Daniel King, and I'm excited about telling people about Jesus. And I also love coaching evangelists and helping evangelists learn how to be more effective at what God has called them to do. And one of the ways that is effective at raising money is hosting a ministry banquet. And today I have one of the world's best experts on doing ministry banquets. He has organized over 300 ministry banquets here in Tulsa and helping ministries to raise money for their ministries. Mr. Brad Stine, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Daniel.
Mr. Brad, you've done a lot of banquets. Tell us, why are banquets such an effective way of raising money for a ministry?
Very simple. Most ministries send out monthly newsletters, sometimes weekly, sometimes every 3 months, but they send out newsletters, and a lot of those newsletters never get read. People say, I like him, I give him money. Throw it in the trash.
They throw the newsletter that you spent good money on in the trash.
In the trash, yeah.
I hope not. I hope no one does that to my newsletters, Mr. Brad.
I'll tell you how you can tell who does and who doesn't. Just say, hey, did you get my newsletter? And if they look to the side and say, yeah, I received it, they didn't read it.
Sure.
If they look you in the eye and say, yep, sure did, and I really like that second paragraph where it said yada, 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 then you know you got a live one.
All right, so a banquet is good because it's not a newsletter. You're actually have an opportunity to talk to people face to face and communicate your vision, your passion. They can hear how much you care in the sound of your voice, see your facial cues, and when you're talking about your vision, they see just how passionate you are, and that gives God a chance for the anointing to come into the room, and people open up their wallets and get a chance to give. So talk to me some about the process of organizing a banquet, because it doesn't just happen by itself. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. So what are some of the steps you have to take in order to set up a banquet?
Well, first is the person needs to realize they need a banquet. The banquet is not only just for fundraising. It's an opportunity to get to see the people who've been giving into your ministry for the last year and look them in the eye and give them a hug on their neck, a handshake, thank them, because they are part of the team. They're the provisionaries. And many times we ministries have a tendency to receive the money from them or the support, whatever it is that they're giving us, and we go out and use it in the name of the Lord, but we don't really complete the loop. And so we tend to be recipients instead of giving back to them. But if at least once a year we get to look them in the face, hug them, and thank them, and that helps to keep the loop going. Keeps it going, because they haven't seen you for a year. And if they are not reading your newsletter, they know you're a good guy, they know you're worthwhile, but they tend to start losing connectivity with you. And so that's the primary reason. Primary reason for the banquet is not the funds. It's the fellowship.
The connection.
The connection.
And giving back to people who have given to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of those people are hurting. Some of those people got family problems. Some of those people have financial problems. Some of those people are trying to decide whether they send you X number of dollars per month or whether they need to make their car payment or whatever. They're struggling. And by meeting with them once a year, that helps to strengthen that bond and helps them to see the man of God praying for them, because that could be the difference of making or not making it. Yeah.
So who would you invite to come to a banquet?
Well, let's say that you have a mailing list of, say, 500 people. And you know that you got 50 people who give every month. They're consistent. You just know that that money's going to be there.
They're faithful.
Yeah. And then you got maybe another 50 who are, they give just about every month. A little more sporadic, but they love their ministry and they want to help. And then you have some more people who give occasionally, very sporadic. But if you will invite those people, many of them will come, and it will help to develop a longer, a better relationship. They'll want to help you. They see a face to that newsletter. They see an opportunity that, hey, this guy really is making a difference. And there's some people who cannot go overseas. They just can't. They may have a family issue, or they may have a health issue or whatever, and they're just not going to go. But they can go by virtue of sending you a check. And some of them do. And it's just a way of loving on people once a year. Look them in the eye and thank them. And say, look, here's what's going on. Here's what I've been doing to help the ministry. And let's say if you're in the ministry of doing open air evangelist work, you can look them in the eye and say, you know, Joe, you have a Spanish descent. I want you to know what happened in Honduras. 146,000 people showed up. And approximately, we'll never know for sure, but approximately a fourth of them got born again. You know, and you were a part of that. Because I could not have gone if people like you didn't give into this ministry. And that's in the most recent newsletter on page 6. I showed you a picture of that peel full of faces. Some of those people got born again because of what you did.
So if you're organizing a banquet, the first thing you do is find a venue. You at a hotel,
Yeah.
or even a church. Maybe you could cater food, but a hotel's a great place because
Hotel's better, and here's why. Because it's a neutral venue. The moment you have it in a church, and there's nothing wrong with having it in a church, but when you have it in a church, if it's a Baptist church, different denominations may not come. Or if it's in a AG church, same thing. But if you're in a hotel, it's a neutral venue, and everybody will come.
So you'd want to send out invitations to friends from church, people you work with, people you might do business with, basically anyone that you would normally send a Christmas card to, any way that you would have a relationship with, that you think might be interested in supporting the ministry, as well as those who already support your ministry.
Yep.
And then on the invitation, you would include information about the date, the location, the purpose of the banquet, and you would probably include an RSVP envelope for people to respond,
Absolutely.
for them to be able to let you know whether
Yep.
they come or not. But then people are very busy these days, so it's also helpful the week before the banquet to call every single person who's RSVP'd and get their verbal commitment again that they will be there, because some people will have forgotten, some people will have gotten busy, and that will help you with your final count for the banquet.
I would call 3 times.
You would call 3
And
times.
here's why. First call,
When would you be calling them? Give me the timeline.
I would mail out the invitations about 3 weeks before the event. and I would put in the invitation, save the date. It's to remind them to get out their calendar and make a note on that date, save the date. And the first call I would make, probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 days after you mail them. Hey Joe, just want to check to make sure you got the invitation. That's a very valid question. No, what invitation? Oh, well, you'll probably get it tomorrow then. You probably just haven't got it yet. If you don't mind, I'll just holler at you tomorrow to make sure you got one. Because if you didn't, for some reason, by the way, is your address 123 Apple Street? Yep. Okay, zip code? Yep. Okay, well, I just want to make sure then. I did mail it to the right place. I'll give you a holler a day or two. And the second phone call, you're confirming that they did receive the invitation. And, oh, by the way, save the date. Yeah. The next time we call, you call them to see, do you think you and Becky are going to be able to come? We'd sure love to see you. You know, it's been about a year since I've seen you. You've so faithfully given to this ministry. And there's some things we just want to bring you up to speed on, let you know what's going on. And got a little short video we want to show you. Just, hug on you. And, oh yeah, we're coming. Oh yeah. Or many times they'll say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you called. I put it down on my table and I forgot to mention to Becky. Thank you for calling. That little phone call sounds a little bit like the first phone call, but it's not. It's a caring phone call. You're letting that person know you're really looking forward to seeing them.
So the first phone call, you are asking, did you receive the invitation?
Yes, sir.
And then the second phone call, you're saying, sure would love to have you there.
Yeah.
It would be great to see you. We love you guys.
Yep.
We want to see your faces. Can you please come?
Yeah. Then the third phone call is, hey, Joe, you know, if we're going to have roasted chicken, and we're trying to figure out how many chickens to catch. And chicken's going to lay down his life for you. So we just want to make sure that we're, processing the right number of chickens. And they laugh, you laugh, and they say, oh, I'm really glad you called. Something came up and yada, yada, yada. Or as a matter of fact, yeah, we are coming. Could we bring our kids? Well, how old are they? Well, we got one that's 14. Yep, that one can come. And we got one that's 3. No, we'll have babysitting service for that one, or you can leave them home with your babysitter. Yeah, it's just that.
So when does that third phone call come? Is that?
Oh, I would do that probably about 3 or 4 days before the event. Yeah, and you would be shocked. I would say, probably 25% of the people say, oh my gosh, I am so glad you called. I forgot all about it. That happens all the time.
Now, at a banquet, how many people typically show up that say that they're actually going to come?
Well, if the weather's good and everything looks pretty sharp, you can figure probably about 85%. If people say, yep, we'll be there, rain or shine, you can count on us, we'll be there, take that number times 85%.
One of the things that you've done really well at some of your banquets, which I've attended banquets that you've hosted for a variety of different ministries here in Tulsa. It's always wonderful. It's always a great time of fellowship, and I love hearing about people's visions. You also do table sponsors, and so often you'll invite people to come and say your table has been sponsored. How do you do that, and what's the importance of that?
Well, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. What we endeavor to do and we usually accomplish it. We want everybody who comes to a banquet to be sponsored by somebody. In other words, we want everybody to eat for free. Because give and it shall be given unto you. Now, I'll come back to that in just a moment. There's another point I want to make on that. So, let's say that a table has 8 positions, 8 chairs. And let's just say for round numbers, and this is going to vary from different parts of the country, different parts of the world. So these numbers may or may not be correct. But let's just say in round numbers, $50 a person. Yeah, 50 times 8 people is 400. So you say, $500 a table. That covers, having brochures and, it covers the various expenses, the video and so forth.
And the venue.
And the venue.
The venue, and then the food.
And the food.
You want to tip the waiters.
Yeah, everything, yeah. So let's just say round numbers is $50, or $500 for a table of 8. Well, a lot of businesses, somebody owns a plumbing company. Say, hey Joe, you own a plumbing company. Tell you what, if you would be interested, we'll put this table sponsored by Joe's Plumbing Company. And we'll announce it from the podium along with all the other sponsors. And that way you can get a tax write-off. If we mention it from the podium, you can get a tax write-off as advertisement. Or if you give it and we don't announce it, you can get a tax write-off as a charitable contribution. But if we do both, you can choose how you want to write it off. You can write it off the combination, or you can write it off all one way or all the other way. And it gives you the ability to have a good tax write-off and nice advertisement.
So, in advance, before the banquet starts, you're going around to different businesses, different people that you have relationships with, and asking them to sponsor a table. Would you sponsor one of the tables at our banquet for $400, and we'll announce that you are the sponsor for that table, and publicly thank you for being a sponsor. Mm-hmm. Okay, then let's talk about the actual banquet. What should you do during the banquet to talk me through from the moment people arrive at the banquet facility until they leave? What do you do?
Well, what you do is you put a master plan of it, and that's basically a brief written description of your ministry on every other chair. And you put them on the chair at a slight angle to make it delightful to look at. It's not just thrown on a chair, it's put on there with purpose. And they have to pick the thing up before they sit down. So now it's in their hand. And so you want to have it to where they can read it as they're walking.
And of course the master plan, we talked about this in the last episode of the podcast, about how to develop a master plan. It's basically a short description explaining the vision mm-hmm. and the objectives and the tactics of the ministry, what the ministry is doing.
Right.
So they pick it up off their table, they're sitting there, music is going as people are coming in, and they're flipping through it before you even get started. They're looking at all the pictures.
Right.
Finding out what your ministry is all about.
Yep. And what we do is we let them go ahead and maybe start eating their salad while people are filtering in. And of course they're talking with each other, they're fellowshipping. And then when the meeting actually officially starts, you start with a prayer. And then the food should be starting to be served when they say amen. That's the signal to the venue to start delivering the food. When they hear that word amen, not before, but when they hear the word amen, boom, the food shows up. Now, what I'm about to say is very, very important. the master of ceremonies says, folks, look around you here. Got beautiful chandeliers, got a beautiful room, great food, great fellowship, and guess what? It's already paid for. Whatever you give later tonight, 100% goes to the gospel, because all of this was paid for in advance by the following sponsors. And then you name off the sponsors in alphabetical order so that nobody's feelings get hurt. Have them all stand. Clap one time when they're all standing. Don't clap for each individual one, but when they're all standing, then you clap for them, and that gives them their tax write-off. But it also lets the people know that this wonderful banquet is already paid for, and that helps them to realize they can feel comfortable with opening up their wallets and their billfolds. Now, along those lines, 90% of the money brought in to the banquet that night is in ladies' purses.
It's in ladies' purses. It's not in the wallets.
That's right. It's in the ladies' purses. Now, this is very, very important. If the minister, the missionary, if he's married, when he gets up to speak, he has his wife go up there with him and have her speak first. For, let's say 10, 15 minutes, and then he'll speak for maybe 30 minutes, not for an hour. Short, sweet, to the point. But here's what's important. The women, and I've seen this hundreds of times, I'm not the only guy, others have. The women tend to sit there with their arms folded and their purses on their lap or on the table there. Their arms are folded and they're listening. And when the minister's wife, missionary's wife, gets up there, and she'll say something like this: you know, when I married Ronald, I knew life was going to be different.
All the women start laughing because they experience the same thing.
And she'll say something like this: oh my goodness, has it been different? But I want you to know that I'm behind my man. We are making a difference in Tanzania. We can see the difference. And I'm so glad that we've obeyed God and have gone there and have done what He asked us to do. Now, when she says that, all around the room, the women go from like this to like this.
They unfold their arms and lean forward.
Lean forward, and they think, all right, she's behind her man. And then, when her husband says, well, honey, how much do you think we should give them tonight? And she says, well, what number do you have in mind? And he said, well, what number do you have in mind? She says, you know, I think we should give them $100 a month. And he says, you know, I was thinking the same thing, with one exception. We're busy people. We're business people. We write checks all the time. And I really don't want to write a check for $100 every month. Let's just write them a check for $1,200.
Well, those are valuable insights on how to conduct a successful banquet.
Yeah.
And so it's also good to maybe show a video
Oh, yeah.
a slideshow of
5
pictures.
minutes on the video. 5 minutes. Now here's why. Sorry if I'm interrupting.
Yeah, no. Why only 5 minutes?
Okay. There's a reason.
What's the reason?
It's laughable, but there's a reason. You bring them in, the guy's worked all day, and all he really wants to do is eat and fall asleep on the couch.
And his wife's making him dress up and go to this banquet.
That's exactly right. And she sees it as a date. Oh, I don't have to cook tonight. I can put the kids with the babysitter, and we're going.
I'm laughing because this is so accurate. This is how my wife thinks about things.
Yeah. And all he really is thinking is, what am I doing here? But when he sees the beautiful food, the happy wife, dressed up to the nines, what you don't want to do is feed him and turn off the lights, because he'll fall asleep. So you got to keep the video to 3 to 5 minutes,
and maybe put some upbeat music behind it, so
boom or something, a couple of booms, subwoofer booms or something to keep it lively, because otherwise you could lose him.
Other things you can do is share stories about people whose lives have been impacted by the ministry. Mm-hmm. You can give details about your goals and projects for the coming year. Another thing that I've seen you do is, if you have a ministry that's working over in Africa, sometimes you'll have someone from Africa actually call on the phone and do a live phone call, talking about the programs that are ongoing in Africa. And so that gives it some flavor. It helps to entertain people, but also communicates the vision of what the ministry is going to do. And then you come to the point where you're making an ask, and you present some different projects. What do you think about monthly support versus asking for one-time donations?
Well, I would ask for the one-time donations first. And then...
And maybe give a specific target. We need $30,000 to build this orphanage building, or something very specific.
Yeah. Tonight, our basic need is, we've got an orphanage over there. We've got 114 kids, and they're not going to school. And they need to be going to school. And at this moment, we got 40 of them have no mommies and no daddies. And they need a place to sleep at night where they're not being afraid of being bitten by an animal or some kind of a predator getting them. And so tonight we need to raise money for an orphanage. And we've checked with the local authorities. We checked with the builders and so forth, and we can build the whole thing for $46,000. Now, we cannot build it here for $46,000, but where we're building it, because of the building codes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we can build the whole thing for $46,000. And we've got here tonight, 140 people, and we're not talking about a lot of money. And so we would really appreciate if you could just help us out. Because a world away, we've got some people who are really in trouble. And they'll have clean water to drink. And they'll be able to sleep all night without worrying about being molested. We really need to help them. And then after that money is coming in, and you say, also there are some people, for whatever reason, may want to budget so many dollars a month as opposed to a one-time offering. And we have the different methods for doing that. You can either use your phone and text the money, and it'll automatically come out of your account. Or you can text the money and it'll come out as you see fit. And then you go through the different methods that they give them 3 or 4 different options. And you'll be shocked at how much money comes in.
Let's finish with some testimonies. In all the banquets that you've done, what's the most money that you've seen come in on one night? And then all the banquets that you do, what's kind of the average amount that you've seen come in per person on a typical banquet? I know there's a lot of variety, but give me the high point. What's the greatest banquet you've ever done?
Well, I'll tell you the worst and the best.
All right.
Maybe the best and the worst. I don't know, as I think of them. But I'm going to tell you one particular one. This is a wild one. This is a wild one. We put together a banquet for, it's around 100 people. And it's a missionary to the Indian nations here in the United States. And after the banquet was over, missionary said to us, he said, well, after we take the expenses of the banquet, the money left over is just over $100. And then he cussed me out.
At least you paid for the banquet.
He literally cussed me out.
Wow.
That doesn't happen very often. But I'll tell you what I did.
I hope that wasn't the best one. That was the worst one, right?
Oh, that was. Let me finish and then you'll know. Are we having fun yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to call him Joe. His name was not Joe. And let's see, Joe, it's obvious that you're not happy. Quite frankly, I don't remember ever being cussed out by a missionary before. But I can understand if only $100 came in after you paid your expenses, that you might wonder what happened. So I'm going to give you a little advice. He says, what's that? I said, shut up! He looked at me like I shot him. I said, you don't know what's getting ready to happen. You don't know how this is going to turn out. And you should not eat your seed. So shut up. And he looked like I just shot him. But he shut up. Daniel, about a little over a week later, he got a check in the mail from one person. That was $100,000.
Wow. I hope he came and apologized to you.
Oh, he did. And then he got another check. And he got some other check. And overall came to right about $200,000.
Wow.
But see, what happened is some people, they listen to the presentation, but they give a day or two later. Sometimes Uncle Joe passes away, leaves them money. You know, things happen.
Sure.
Now, I've seen other cases where one case, the ministry here in Tulsa. This was probably maybe 30 years ago. It's about 130, 140 people. Now, understand, this is probably 30 years, 35 years ago. But on that banquet, the amount of money came in was, maybe off slightly on this, but I think it's pretty close. Around $65,000. Now, if you put that in today's money, that would be
At least double that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, probably 150, 160, 170,000 maybe. 200, I don't know, somewhere in that range, came in that night. So here's the point. Don't try to figure it out. Let God be God. You do your part, He will do His part. His arm is not short. Just go with the flow and realize that the main purpose for the banquet is to have the opportunity to see those people who've been with you for the last year. It's not a one-way ticket. You don't receive. It's receive, give, receive, give, receive, give. You're giving back to them a report of what you've been doing with the money that they so wonderfully put in your hands. It's a two-way street.
That's a tremendous insight. So a banquet is an opportunity to give back to people who have given to you, to connect with them, to let them know that you love them, that you're praying for them, that you care about them. It's an opportunity for wives to get dressed up pretty and for husbands to go and get some good food. And it's an opportunity for you to communicate the vision of the ministry that God has called you to. So Mr. Brad, thank you so much for sharing information about how to hold a successful banquet. If you're interested in holding a banquet and you need some help, give Mr. Brad a call. You can find his information at his website, harvesthomeland.org. And if you'll go to that website, you can connect with him, and he helps lots of ministries put together banquets that are really successful. You have one more thing?
One more comment. Just thought of it. Told you sooner, but I just thought of it. A lot of missionaries itinerate. They come back from the field. They'll come back for maybe 3 months, 2 months, and they'll itinerate around the United States to raise funds to go back over for maybe a year. But keep in mind that banquets, you, the missionary, decide when and where to have the banquet. When you're itinerating, typically pastors of churches or organizations, they decide when they want you to come. And so typically missionaries zigzag back and forth across the country. And by the time they're ready to go back overseas to their ministry field, they're tired. And it's almost a breath of fresh air to get back on the field because they can relax. But when you have a series of banquets, you decide, and so you can make a circle around the country. And then when you're going to have, for example, in Milwaukee, on March 14th, you're going to have a banquet. You pick up the phone and the pastor in that area and say, Pastor, you said to me that when I was coming through the area to call you and that you'd have me speak. Well, as a matter of fact, I'm going to have a banquet there on such and so date. And so I'm calling you ahead of time to let you know I'm going to be in the area for a banquet. And he says, oh, great. Well, why don't we schedule you in for Sunday morning? And now you're hitting 2 or 3 things simultaneously, and you're making one circle around the country, and your efficiency goes through the roof.
Well, thank you. Mr. Brad Stine, an expert on doing banquets for ministries. Thank you so much for your wisdom and for your advice. Thank you for being a guest on the Evangelism podcast. God bless you.
Thank you.
Daniel King is on a mission to save 1 million souls a year, but he can't do it alone. Would you consider sowing a financial seed today? To give, please visit www.kingministries.com.